Hi everyone, it's John and welcome to another edition of Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate, where we talk about everything real estate. Today we're going to review 8 red flags to beware of in home purchase offers. Whether you're an agent soliciting offers for your seller client, or you are the seller and you're reviewing and considering offers that your agent has forwarded to you, you need to be aware of these 8 red flags because they could cost you time, money, or maybe even both. So let's get into them. Red flag number 1, if you see in an offer an unusually short or unusually long escrow period, that's a red flag. If it's a very short escrow period, we need to consider the old saying, pulling a fast one. Because often when someone wants to close escrow very quickly, they might be trying to get something by us, or they might be, even if they're innocently just trying to close it fast, we don't know if we can support that with what we need to do on our side of the deal. So very short escrow period, less than 7 days, that's a bit of a red flag. We need to research it completely. Also a long escrow period, let's say 120 days, is risky because let's say the price and everything is good, but the buyer wants 120 days. Okay, we're going along, but what happens if at 90 days they drop out? Well, now we have to put the property back on the market. We've lost 90 days of marketing time. We don't usually want to do that, right? So we can continue while it's in escrow to show the property, to solicit backup offers, so that maybe there are offers sitting there. If we do drop out and go back on the market, we have interested buyers. Sure, we can do that, and to some extent that might mitigate the risk of a longer escrow, but we also know that when a property goes into escrow, even if we say we're still soliciting backup offers, a lot of good buyers are going to say, well, I don't want to take second seat here. I don't know if I'm going to get this property. I really need to buy a property, so I'm going to give this one a pass, and I'm going to move on and look at other properties. So we will lose a portion of the buyer market. So any escrow that's really short or really long, we really need to consider the pluses and minuses. Red flag number 2, mandatory or mandating affiliated services. Some buyers will come in and they'll say, well, and I'll give you an example, I want to use my escrow company. Well, years ago, I owned a condo, put it on the market, wanted to sell it. Offer came in, and the guy said, well, I want to use my escrow company for escrow services. Well, normally we think in the real estate business, well, that means this is a escrow company that he recommends when he says mine, or that he feels comfortable with. And well, what it turned out in this instance is that the buyer actually owned the escrow company. In fact, he was the only employee, and he was the escrow officer. So escrow officers, who are supposed to be neutral third-party administrators of our deal, they have a conflict of interest when they're the same person as the buyer. So obviously that offer never got off the ground. Big conflict of interest, threw it out. Red flag number 3, outside contingencies. An outside contingency is any activity outside our sale that could directly or indirectly influence our sale. The most common example of that is a buyer comes in, makes a nice offer, but in the offer is a contingency that says, I will close on the purchase of your house after I sell my house where I live now. Well, we don't know as sellers when that house is going to sell. It could fall out of escrow and have to go back on the market, thus delaying our sale. So anytime somebody says they have an outside contingency that it could affect our sale, that's a red flag we need to look into. Number of contingency periods that run until closing date is red flag number 4. I'm going to use mortgage as an example. Most of the time, there's a mortgage contingency, could be anywhere 14 to 21 days. In the contract that says, yeah, I have up till, let's use 21 days. I have 21 days to get my mortgage approved. If I don't get that approved, I have the option where I could pull out of the deal at no risk to me, Or I can keep going and either try to convince my mortgage lender to get that approval to me, or I can go find another mortgage lender. And however, if they do that, if they continue to go past that mortgage or contingency deadline, they risk losing their earnest money deposit. Well, that's why some, if they don't feel that they're a strong borrower, may say, well, I want to take that contingency. I want a 30-day mortgage contingency. Well, then if they fall out on day 29 because they just couldn't get a mortgage, we've just lost 29 marketing days for that property because now we have to put it back on the market. So red flag number 4, contingency periods that run all the way to the scheduled escrow closing date. Red flag number 5 are the words per local custom. Now you may see in the section of a offer that says here's where we decide, or we put who's going to pay what costs. And typically those costs are going to be the escrow fee, title fee, pay for any reports that were generated, any mandated inspections, anything having to do with closing costs, let's say. And you'll see in there, instead of a dollar figure or a percentage, you'll see it says per local custom. And I'll give you an example of a local custom. In some counties, and it's usually by county, you'll see that the seller always pays the escrow fee. In the county next door, it may be that the buyer pays the escrow fee. Well, either way, local custom is not law, it's not regulation, it's not written down anywhere such that it is a legally binding amount. It just says, well, this is what we do. And it's kind of between the agents and everybody in that county, yeah, this is kind of what we do. It's just, but as a broker who has closed deals for sellers in 8 of the 11 counties here in the San Francisco Bay Area where there are local customs in all of them, I made the decision early in my business to throw out per local custom completely. And if someone comes in with an offer that says that, we counter with a very specific amount. And that way we get around the local custom. Now that amount that we put in there may not be what the local custom would say, but then that's too bad. You want the property, these are the terms we offer. So per local custom is a risk and a red flag. Number 6, red flag number 6 is fee splits without limit. So let's go back to the example I just used, talking about who's going to pay the escrow fees. Sometimes we'll see in that offer escrow split 50-50. They mean 50%, or split half and half to the buyer and the seller. Again, that is a red flag because we don't know if that's 50-50 of what? $150, $1,500. We don't know what the actual dollar amount. So the best thing to do is to say, okay, we'll go 50-50 with you. However, we will not pay, as the seller, we will not pay more than $1,000, $1,500, whatever number we're comfortable with. We'll pay 50-50 up to that, but no more than that amount. Anyway, it's a red flag when you see 50-50 because you don't know 50-50 of what. You want to nail that down. And then finally, red flag number 8, and there's actually 2 half flags that make this, and I'm going to give you both of them. It's very common to see in the very top line of a purchase offer where they'll say who is making the offer. And let's say, for our example, it's John Smith. So John Smith is making the offer, and that might be all that we see. But it is also common to see John Smith and or signs. And then there's a very valid and innocent reason for that, because John Smith may have a trust. Maybe he's met with an attorney, they've set up a trust, and all of his bigger assets are held in that trust for estate planning purposes. So John may say, okay, well, I'm buying this house based on my personal credit, my personal employment history, my current assets, the money I have in the bank under my bank account to use as an earnest money deposit. All those things are in my name, but I want the title to this property when we close escrow to be held in my trust. Well, maybe he hasn't even formed a trust yet, but he knows he's going to want one. So during escrow, he has an attorney draw up a trust. So he doesn't have a name for it yet. That's all in process. Well, by the time escrow closes, he will have the name, and he'll have that trust form. And so when we say assigns, or he says assigns in John Smith and/or assigns, it means that he may put it inside his trust so that the actual title will say this property is owned by the John Smith Trust. So John Smith and/or assigns is common, but if we see it accompanied by another sentence somewhere in the offer, it raises the other half of the flag, and now we have what I consider a big red flag. And that is when we see the words elsewhere, this offer is made by a real estate investor for the purpose of making a profit. Now, do we really care, or words to that effect? Something that sounds like that means something like that. That gives us concern. Why? Well, we don't really care if we sell an investor. As long as we get the terms that we're looking for, the price, the escrow period, all the other things that we want in that offer, do we care if we sell to an investor? Probably not. Now, there are people who are technically not investors that we may want to consider whether or not we want to sell to, and those are called wholesalers. And wholesalers, just as a brief definition, a wholesaler buys your property at a below market price, what they believe is a below market price, and as soon as it goes into escrow, they have a list of investors that they try to sell the property to. Again, they don't own it yet, but they are in escrow. So now they go out and they find investors who are willing to pay over the amount that they're paying to buy that house. And when escrow closes, it won't be in the name of the wholesaler. It will be vested or become the property of that second party investor that buys it for more than the wholesaler paid. And the wholesaler then pockets the difference between those two prices. Now, why do we care if we sell to a wholesaler? Well, wholesalers are buying below market value. When we are selling to somebody who is a wholesaler, we almost know for sure that we could get more for our property, because wholesalers, again, will not pay that whole price, the value of it on the open market. So we need to be concerned whether or not we're getting full value. A hallmark of wholesalers, what they are taught to put in their offers is and/or assigns behind their name, and also that statement, this offer is made by a real estate investor for the purpose of making a profit. Those two things in an offer are a sign of a wholesaler. So if we're selling to a wholesaler, that's a red flag, simply, as I said, because we want to know that we're getting the most we can get for our property. So those are 8 red flags. If you can think of any more that you'd like to add to the list, please enter them in the comments below. If you have any questions about any of these 8 red flags, please also leave them in the comments below. If you can think of anything else you would like covered in future editions of Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate, please make a comment below, and we'll see if we can't do a video on that topic. If you like this video, please hit like, and I hope you will subscribe and join us on the next Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate. Until then, take care.